Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm a medical herbalist and really busy mum. I live in Leek in the Midlands, and I recently used Springbok to sell my first home, which was quite an emotional experience because it was the first home I'd owned on my own, so I really wanted it to be a good process. I found Springbok because they actually had listed a property that I was interested in Leek, while I was still thinking about which agent to go with, so that was quite good timing. I was in two minds about whether to move house at all because moving is so stressful. Buying and selling at the same time is doubly stressful. That whole being in a chain thing is stressful for the most robust of us mentally, but when you're a vulnerable child and you've got people poking around your bedroom, that's really quite aggravating for kids, especially ones on the spectrum. So I was really intrigued by this notion that only buyers who were in a good position could come and view. I thought that was really unique. Actually, I don't know of any other company that does that, and certainly nothing that was local to me. Springbok wasn't super far away, I think maybe 40 minutes. I've never actually had to go to the office, which was fantastic. Everything was handled on phone calls, on email. I found them really communicative, which is something that I need, ironically, because I'm quite hard to get hold of. But I found that they were really responsive and updated me really regularly, which was great. It's exactly what I needed. So I had several people I was dealing with, and each person had a tailored job. So I can't remember the roles exactly, but I think the first one was sort of sales negotiator, and the next one was like sales progressor and things like that. And I liked that each person had their own sort of dedicated role, because other agents that I had looked at potentially working with, they had just anybody could pick up the phone and look into your inquiry, and I would really rather have somebody that was dedicated to that special role. So I personally found it very helpful. I had a professional photographer come out, and this sticks in my mind because she was so good, she was so professional, and she was sort of included in the package with Springbok. And she was just the loveliest person, and she was so complimentary about the decor and everything. And it felt like she really meant it. She may not have done, but it felt nice anyway. And she took the most beautiful photos of my home. I thought it was really nice because, I had invested a lot, not just financially, but emotionally into the home, I think, as you do when it's your first home. So I really wanted it to come across as the sort of unique property that it was, and was had an offer accepted within 2 weeks. I was so surprised, even having read the statistics and all the other stuff, because I had a good look at different local agents' sort of stats before choosing Springbok. And the USP for me with Springbok was this whole invested buyer, proceedable buyer situation, and the fixed price as well was really reassuring to me. I didn't want to be going back and forth on a price. It's just not something I can give any time or energy to. I've got a really busy schedule. I've got 2 kids that need extra attention from me, which I'm very happy to give, but it means my sort of mental resources for other stuff is quite limited. So for me, it was a great trade-off. Knowing what I'd walk away with allowed me to, and my partner, but she didn't own the house. I bought it before we got together. Knowing that number straight from the very first phone call allowed us to budget properly, and meant that we weren't disappointed later down the line. We were able to get things in place in terms of our next purchase. So that was great. The reason we did ultimately decide to sell after going back and forth for a little bit was that we really wanted more space for our children. My partner's Irish, and she has a grown-up son who we would have loved to have been able to come and stay with us, but he's a tall chap. We didn't have a spare room. Sticking him on the sofa when he's 6'6" felt a bit unfair, so it just never happened. So we really wanted to buy a big house where my children who are now teenagers, could have friends over, and it didn't feel like we were all crammed on top of each other. Don't know if you've ever been in a house with 3 teenage boys and their friends, but it starts to feel quite claustrophobic quite quickly. So yeah, we managed to, we had a few false starts buying other places, which was just the way it goes. But ultimately, we found ourselves a wonderful house on a lovely street. We've got great neighbours, and we've got all the space plus more that we could ever want. And we wouldn't have got that if we hadn't taken that risk and gone ahead and sold. And, even in just, I think it's 3 weeks now since we've moved, even then, in that small space of time, the house has become like a hub for the kids and their friends, which we could never have had at our old property, which was great when the kids were little and you want them a bit closer, but as they're teenagers they need a bit more space and you need to not hear them as much. So yeah, it was the right decision for us ultimately, and I think Springbok were the right people to do it. So I'd recommend Springbok if you're kind of like me, you've got limited mental space for thinking about the sale of your home and you really like definites. So I wanted to walk away from the very first phone call with a number in my head that happened, and I really wanted a fast sale. A fast sale that would complete, a successful sale, not something that was going to fall apart at the last minute. And both of those things happened, and I was really satisfied with that, because although we had some issues purchasing our next house that had nothing to do with Springbok's side, it could not have been simpler. The people I dealt with at Springbok were really professional and responsive, and that was very important to me. So there's 3 good reasons to give them a try for selling your house.